the correspondence, the medium of exchange between decisiveness and pleasure. On the one hand, you have a decisive work. On the other hand, you have some pleasure that's generated. This pleasure causes some reinvestment in the decisiveness, which causes some reinvestment in the pleasure. What's the term of this deal? What's the currency that's being exchanged? You know, one way out of this is you might have somebody, like you say, some like highfalutin academics person say like, well, there's a greater virtue of poetry. And then explain the fuck out of that. And then I'm saying, like, always, I think that those kinds of arguments can be, you know, just, they can be dispelled. But see, earlier when I said that it's important to dispel the virtue argument, you seemed okay with the idea that this will flatten poetry into a hedonistic kind of field of you know, reciprocal exchanges of pleasure and decisiveness. And I said, no, that is simply a reperformance of capitalism. That's what capitalism is. It's a flat, reciprocal, hedonistic field of anonymous exchange or alienated exchanges of desire and pleasure. It is a dog-eat-dog world. It's a world of dogs. And, you know, you can try to make it into a world of cats by introducing the idea of virtue, but it's you know, that's silly. You know, what really needs to be done is that some evaluation needs to be performed on this flat circularity. If we say it's okay that this reciprocal exchange of pleasure desire, and I think actually maybe we should rephrase decisiveness as desire production, right? Desire production pleasure, right? If you don't get out of the idea that the legitimacy of art, of poetry, is the creation of desire and the production of pleasure, this sort of reciprocal exchange, desire, pleasure. If you don't get out of that, you know, by at least at first being able to deride it as hedonistic, then you have no way of knowing whether poetry is simply a kind of ritual worship of the commodity fetish. You know, if you love capitalism, then you will write poems to capitalism. You will repeat the gesture of capitalism in your poems, and you will even go so far as to say that all of poetry is structured as a higher kind of like a deified form of capitalism, in which this fetishistic exchange of desire and pleasure production are elevated to the level of, you know, like these great works of art that do this and do this well and can't do this any other way, and actually, you know, saying that something can't do what it does any other way, which is can't succeed any other way, is also to say that it can't be anything else but what it is, which is like a reproduction and representation of the commodity fetish.